to oxygen crisis in the national capital as oxygen concentrators awaited custom clearance. Prominent Delhi hospitals are currently appealing to government to fix the oxygen crunch here. This comes amid speculations of 3,000 concentrators stuck due to clearance by the Customs Department. The High Court yesterday asked the centre to appraise the court about the number of oxygen concentrators pending with the Customs Department. In fact, the Central Customs Department clarified that there was no stock of concentrators lying there. The crisis remains at a time when the centre's Oxygen Express carrying 205 metric tons of the life-saving gas is set to arrive in the national capital today. Delhi needs oxygen supply urgently of 976 metric tons on a daily basis. In fact, the national capital will now receive 590 metric tons of that instead of the 480 metric tons. Now, amid the rising crisis and cases in the national capital, Delhi government sends out an SOS to the Defence Minister Rajnath Singh, seeking the Army's help in the COVID pandemic fight. Delhi government sought the Army's help to set up 10,000 oxygen and 1,000 ICU beds in the national capital. The High Court now asks the centre to revert to the AAP government's request at the earliest. Let's take a listen.
The Kejriwal government has asked for the Indian Army to be deployed to rescue Delhi from the death grip of COVID. The Delhi government has sent an SOS to Defence Minister Rajnath Singh seeking the Army's urgent intervention to set up an additional 1,000-bed ICU COVID facility, non-ICU COVID quarantine centres, and to provide any other assistance possible in the multi-layered crisis in the capital. The 1.1 million-strong Indian Army has unmatched logistical strength, and this could be enlisted now on a war footing. For instance, rapid vehicle fleets for emergency supply and delivery of oxygen and drugs between states and cities. The Army can rapidly set up COVID facilities in any part of the country at short notice. The Army can also deploy its huge manpower and supply chain logistics to speed up vaccine delivery. It can deploy medical staff and manpower to scale up testing anywhere very quickly. And it can provide rapid strength for containment area enforcement in any part of the country. The government has set up a special COVID crisis committee under the Integrated Defence Headquarters to coordinate relief efforts both within the military as well as aid to civil authority. The panel is headed by Lieutenant General Madhuri Kanitkar, who already has a battle plan for Delhi and beyond wherever required.
The armed forces is ready. It has been ready for a while, and though we've been fighting this war against COVID for the last 14 months, I assure the nation that we are all ready. A normal war, we have our soldiers up front and we medical people are the shoulders. But today in this war, with the virus as the enemy, the doctors and the healthcare workers and all of us, we are the soldiers, but we have strong shoulders with us. So it's a co-jeet. We cannot do this alone. And our senior leadership is supporting us in every way.
The Indian Army is already deployed in the COVID fight. For instance, last week, the Defence Minister granted the Armed Forces emergency access to funds to set up and operate quarantine and treatment facilities for COVID patients. Before that, the Defence Ministry announced it was roping in 600 retired doctors to be deployed in the COVID battlefield. The Army has also extended the tenure of all Short Service Commission doctors till the 31st of December this year to have all hands on deck. But the current crisis means the Army's full strength will potentially be required to win the war. The Army's sister services, the Air Force and Navy, in oxygen logistics duties from home and abroad. With Delhi formally calling for the Army, has the war against COVID entered its most decisive phase? With Gaurav Sawant and Abhishek Bhalla in Delhi, Bureau Report, India Today.
Now, in a shocking case, UP Panchayat polls have become the final act for more than 700 teachers. The State Teachers Union claim that over 700 teachers lost their lives in the COVID-19 fight while being deployed on election duty in Uttar Pradesh. Yogi government says, on the other hand, that there is no clarity whether these teachers died due to COVID or not. Here's a ground report by Ashutosh Mishra.
700 teachers. Think of that number again. 700 teachers have lost their lives to COVID-19 while being deployed on election duty in Uttar Pradesh. The state's Panchayat polls becoming their final act. and leading to the horrifying number of deaths being reported by the State Teachers Union. The four-phase Panchayat polls for around 850,000 local body seats were held between April 15th and 2019th. And the damage of this exercise on human life is still being assessed. Ramesh Kumar's sister holds the picture of her now deceased brother with tears in her eyes.
कहते थे कि कोई टेंशन मत लेना किसी बात के लिए। मेरे छोटे भाई हैं उनकी भी हर इच्छा का ख्याल रखते थे। उन्हें जो चाहिए होता था बोलते थे अब तो जॉब मिल गई है जो भी चाहिए बता देना।
A few months ago, Ramesh's family was over the moon that their son had become a government teacher.
लड़का पढ़ने में बहुत तेज था, वो पीसीएस की तैयारी कर रहा था। उसने कहा कि मास्टरी की नौकरी कर ले रहा होता और अच्छी नौकरी पीसीएस की तैयारी करते रहेंगे बाद में।
His father says his condition started deteriorating once he came back from the election duty.
3 बजे लगभग जिला अस्पताल में एडमिट हुए। उसके बाद 9-10 बजे तक ठीक कुछ सुधार हुआ, लेकिन एकाएक फिर गड़बड़ हुई तबीयत। रात 23 तारीख को 12 बजे के आसपास खत्म हो गया था मेरा लड़का।
The horrifying tragedy does not end here. The district administration forced even Kalyani Agarhari, and 8 months pregnant, into election duty. Kalyani ran from pillar to post to get out of it, but she did not succeed. She and her unborn child fell victim to the deadly virus. Ramesh and Kalyani are just 2 among the hundreds of such stories. The Yogi Adityanath government says there is no clarity if teachers died of COVID contracted during election duty. What's clear is 700 lives have been lost, many more than if you add the family members. Once again, an election exercise being allowed without a thought for the rampaging second wave. For those left behind, there is peace and no closure. Who will answer for those they have lost?
Government was in no mood to stop this Panchayat election, but many families had lost their loved ones. This is Ramesh Kumar Yadav's house. After returning from Panchayat election, Ramesh, who has not even got her first salary, he died of corona. And that just after the Panchayat election, where he has taken part as a government employee, and now family has lost his son. This is Kumar Abhishek in Sultanpur for India Today.
Now, it's not just Buxar, but the plight of COVID patients is no better in Ara district of Bihar. A COVID patient kept on pleading for treatment at the hospital, but his appeals fell on deaf ears. India Today's Ashutosh Mishra too asked for help from nurses, doctors who were there present, but to no avail. Let's take a look what really went by.
एक मरीज मर गया, दूसरे की हालत बिगड़ रही है यहाँ पे। कौन होगा जिम्मेदार? किसकी जवाबदेही तय होगी? यहाँ लोग मर रहे हैं।
This is the plight of COVID patients in Ara in Bihar. Ram Shankar kept begging, kept asking for help. From the nurse to the helpline, from anyone and everyone.
कोविड वार्ड में एक मरीज है, उनकी हालत एकदम खराब हो रही है सर। उनका ऑक्सीजन जो है 40 के नीचे आ गया है।
We tried to help him as he fought for his life, one breath at a time. And he died right in front of our cameras, without any help, leaving behind a devastated son. Unfortunately, Ram Shankar is not an isolated case. Many are dying without treatment in the Sadar Hospital in Ara, which is currently in shambles. The ICU is a warehouse. Beds with ventilators have been non-functional for 8 months. The hospital doesn't even have electricity. So this woman can't even give her husband the nebulizer.
बोला था किसी ने? हाँ, डॉक्टर साहब ने बोले हैं कि नेबुलाइजर 3 टाइम देना है, लेकिन हम बिजली की वजह से अभी तक नेबुलाइजर उनको नहीं दे पा रहे हैं। और उनका हाथ भी तेज हो गया है सर।
लाइट कब से नहीं है?
लाइट 24 घंटा हो गया, पूरी रात लाइन नहीं है। रात में 10 बजे से लाइन कटी हुई है।
No doctor or nurse appears in the ward till noon, and the kin are left to take care of the patients themselves.
COVID reporting surge in the state of Bihar, the crumbling state of affairs here in Ara, the restricted area, a COVID ward. But look at the affairs, how the patients are left on their own. It is only the attendants who have been forced now to even provide oxygen, though the cylinders are available.
Ram Shankar was admitted to the Sadar Hospital because his oxygen levels started dropping. But his son says that Ram Shankar received no treatment at all.
कोई आया देखने के लिए? नर्स डॉक्टर?
ना नर्स आ रही है ना डॉक्टर आ रहा है।
कब से नहीं आए भैया?
क्या हम
से नहीं आए देखने के लिए?
कहाँ आए हैं अभी तक?
भैया देख लो, शायद जिंदा हो, सांस ले रहे हो।
When Ram Shankar was struggling to breathe, we asked for help from the nurse and the doctor on duty, but nothing happened. There are 3 ventilator beds right above the COVID-19 wards, but they are padlocked.
ऊपर से जब ओपन करेंगे तब ना हम लोग इसका यूज करेंगे।
खुला नहीं है अभी? कब से ताला बंद है?
ये तो जब से डेट ऑफ ज्वाइनिंग ताला बंद है।
कितने दिन हो गए इसको?
करीब 8 महीना।
The waterlogged ICU is more of a warehouse that stocks medicines and machines. When we asked the doctor on duty why there was no electricity in the hospital, she was evasive. We pleaded with her that a patient was in serious need of medical help. But all she said was she, a doctor, will soon go to check on Ram Shankar.
एक बार कोशिश कर सकती है, शायद जान बच जाए। पहले एक आदमी तड़प रहा, उसकी जान बचाने की कोशिश कर रहे हैं।
We also called the number on this poster outside the COVID ward. But while we were explaining how dire Ram Shankar's situation was, the person hung up on us.
एक रमा शंकर साहा है, देखिए भैया वार्ड में उनकी तबीयत बिगड़ गई है, 40 के नीचे आ गया है ऑक्सीजन, कुछ कीजिए ना जल्दी से।
अच्छा, वहाँ ठीक है, वहाँ बात करते हैं।
यहाँ कोई डॉक्टर ही नहीं है, लाइट भी नहीं है। वो
A relative of another patient breaks down while talking about how he has been trying to get help for his loved one.
एक भाई अभी डेथ कर गए
आपके?
हाँ, और एक भाई अभी भर्ती हैं।
कोई किसी को फोन किया होगा आपने? कुछ तो कोशिश की होगी, कोई आए यहाँ पर देखने के लिए?
फोन कोई नहीं उठा रहा है।
While this horror unfolds right in front of their eyes, the focus of the Ara administration is completely elsewhere.
जो CS इंचार्ज है वो बस डिस्चार्ज करने आता है, आएगा यहाँ पे
डिस्चार्ज करके यहाँ पे फूल माला पहना है। उस दिन परसों फूल माला पहना है कि ले जाओ, ठीक है मरीज। ऑक्सीजन पर नाप दिए 93 है, बिना ऑक्सीजन का नाप में नहीं किए, ले जाओ ठीक है। यहाँ पर लेकर आए और मरीज मेरा लेट गया नीचे में।
मरीज मेरी आंख के सामने मर गया। हमने डॉक्टरों को भी फोन किया, अस्पताल में हेल्पलाइन नंबर पे भी फोन किया, नहीं उठाया किसी ने फोन, कोई मदद नहीं आई है। ये नहीं देखना चाहते हम। कौन लेगा जिम्मेदार? कौन होगा जिम्मेदार?
We saw firsthand the shocking apathy of a medical system which has collapsed as patients suffer and succumb with their loved ones watching helplessly. With Ashutosh Mishra in Ara, Bureau Report, India Today.
Now, a day after 20 people lost their lives after oxygen supplies ran out at a hospital in Karnataka's Chamarajnagar, opposition led by former Chief Minister Siddaramaiah took on Chief Minister B.S. Yediyurappa, demanding his resignation following the tragedy here. In a stinging attack, Siddaramaiah said that various hospitals have been raising SOS calls across the state. We don't want a rerun of Chamarajnagar hospital incident. To prevent that, Chief Minister must resign. In fact, Congress MP Rahul Gandhi also took to Twitter, expressed his condolences to the families of the deceased. He's also asked the government how much more do people really have to suffer before the government acts. BJP President JP Nadda is going to visit Kolkata today amid post-poll violence in the state. According to sources, JP Nadda will visit these areas where BJP workers were allegedly attacked and killed, and is all set to meet the families of the kin. He will also go to Hugli's Arambagh, where violence ensued and vehicles were torched shortly after Nandigram results were out. The Bengal BJP wing has claimed that at least 6 of its workers were killed across the state since the counting day. BJP will be staging a nationwide protest in Kolkata tomorrow against the widespread post-poll violence in the state. The Union Home Ministry has sought a detailed report from the TMC government on the attacks targeted on the opposition party workers post the election.
After Khela Shesh, it's violence hove in Bengal. Bloodshed and badla politics back on the streets of Bengal. BJP alleges its offices were burnt, workers were hunted down and murdered. Even the Home Ministry had to step in, asking for a report. It began Sunday evening when Nandigram's victorious BJP candidate Shuvendu Adhikari reached the counting centre to collect his winning certificate after defeating Mamta Banerjee. He was mobbed, abused and stones were pelted at his vehicle.
Stone pelting that's happening after Shuvendu Adhikari arrived here at the counting centre by TMC Karyakartas. We are standing at the counting centre over here. He arrived here briefly and you can see the TMC party workers over here who've gathered, who heckled him, and he had to leave from the counting centre within minutes.
As the Rapid Action Force was brought in to rein in the mob, more reports of violence started trickling in. The BJP alleged its Nandigram office was vandalized by TMC cadre. Other incidents of vandalism and loot were reported from Balurghat, Kaliganj and Peertala. Even the party's youth wing, Akhil Bharatiya Vidyarthi Parishad, tweeted its office in Kolkata had been vandalized by alleged TMC goons. BJP has accused the Trinamool Congress of killing 6 of its party workers in the last 24 hours, including the mother of a party worker, Shova Rani Mondal, who it alleges was murdered while trying to save her son.
भय का वातावरण, इससे बंगाल को मुक्ति होनी चाहिए, इसलिए चुनाव हुआ था। और पार्टी जो सत्ता में है वो अभी हाथों पर हाथ बांध कर बैठा हुआ है, पुलिस भी निष्क्रिय है। इसलिए महामहिम राज्यपाल के पास हम निवेदन लेके आए थे, उन्होंने स्वीकार किया और योग्य अधिकारी तक पहुंचाने के लिए हमको आश्वासन दिया।
A BJP delegation called on Governor Jagdeep Dhankar to apprise him of the alarming incidents of post-poll violence in the state. Mamta Banerjee, meanwhile, dismissed BJP claims as old video.
They are giving some photographs that is old one. ये उसका habit है. I don't like any violence or anything. But why BJP is doing that?
Mamta, however, appealed to her political workers to maintain peace and calm.
সকলের সামনে আমি একটাই কথা অ্যাপিল করব সবাইকে, আমার সকল ভাই বোনেদের, যে বাংলা শান্তিপ্রিয় জায়গা, সংস্কৃতিপ্রিয় জায়গা, সম্প্রীতিপ্রিয় জায়গা। নির্বাচন হয়েছে, নির্বাচনে হার জিত হয়েছে, আবহাওয়া গরম হয়েছে, কখনো কখনো আবহাওয়া ঠান্ডা হয়েছে এবং বিজেপি অনেক অত্যাচার করেছে, এটা আমরা জানি। সেন্ট্রাল ফোর্সেস অনেক অত্যাচার করেছে, আমরা জানি। তা সত্ত্বেও আমি সবাইকে বলবো যে শান্ত থেকে, যেন আমরা কেউ কোনো ভায়োলেন্সে না জড়াই।
The BJP claims that 6 of their Karyakartas have been killed by Trinamool goons. The Trinamool also claims that some places the BJP also attacked some of their workers. Now in this blame game, Mamta Banerjee has 2 heavy tasks to be tackled. Firstly, as she said, She needs to tackle how the COVID situation can be under control, and she needs to also tackle how the violence can be stopped.
Didi has won a massive and a historic mandate. But with great power comes greater responsibility. As TMC workers allegedly embark on the path of retribution, it is for their leader to ensure that every citizen of the state feels safe.
Now, after the triumph victory in Assam, the biggest question in front of the BJP now is who will be the next Chief Minister of Assam, Hemanta Biswa Sarma or Sarbananda Sonowal. The buzz has already been created by both BJP leaders on ground. Later today, separate meetings were going on. In fact, at Sonowal and Biswa's residence, at least 11 newly elected BJP MLAs marked their presence at Biswa's house in Guwahati. The Saffron Party sources said that at least 3 central leaders will be visiting Guwahati. They'd finalize who will be the next chief ministerial candidate and the leader of the legislative party. From Prime Minister Narendra Modi to BJP's National President JP Nadda, everyone seemed to have given equal importance to Sarbananda Sonowal and Finance Minister Hemanta Biswa Sarma. Meanwhile, Assam has given the verdict on the 2nd of May. Saffron Party and its allies secured a majority with 75 seats in 126-member House. News and updates, do log on to indiatoday.in. You could also download